All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the public meeting of the New Jersey Cannabis Regulatory Commission. The time is now 1:09 by my watch, and I call this meeting to order. As we begin, I want to remind everyone that public comments can be submitted to the Cannabis Regulatory Commission both during and after this meeting in writing via our website, www.nj.gov/cannabis/meetings. The deadline to submit written comments for this meeting is Friday, March 25th at 5:00 p.m. Ms. Blake, can you please read the notice of the public meeting?
Madam Chairwoman, this is a meeting of the New Jersey Cannabis Regulatory Commission. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the Senator Byron M. Baer Open Public Meetings Act. The meeting was noticed in the Asbury Park Press, Atlantic City Express, Bergen Record, Courier Post, and the Trenton Times in December 2021. Information regarding the virtual nature of the meeting due to the COVID-19 pandemic was posted in publications and on the CRC website. The meeting time and location has also been posted on the website of the New Jersey Cannabis Regulatory Commission and with the Office of the Secretary of State.
Thank you, Ms. Blake. Can you please take roll call?
Commissioner Barker.
Present.
Commissioner Delsid Coso.
Present.
Vice Chair Delgado.
Present.
Commissioner Nash.
Present.
Chairwoman Wainu.
Present.
All members of the commission are present, and we now have a quorum. The first order of business is for the commission to go into executive session to discuss legal matters and litigation updates. These discussions that are not shared with the public. We believe the executive session should take about 30 minutes today.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to go to executive session?
I move that we go into executive session, Madam Chairwoman.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Delgado, seconded by Commissioner Delsid Coso. Is there any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of going into executive session say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Are there any abstentions? All right, the motion passes. The commission will now go into executive session. Again, we expect the executive session to last approximately 30 minutes. We will leave the live stream running during that time and we'll return once the executive session is done. We can expect to resume the open public session at approximately 1:42 p.m. Thank you all for your patience. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We are ready to resume. So the time is now, our executive session has ended. Time is now 1:46 and we will resume the open public portion of this meeting. Ms. Blake, can you please announce the next agenda item? Ms. Blake, you believe you are still on mute.
Sorry about that. The next item on today's agenda is approving the minutes of both the commission's open session and executive session held on February 24th, 2022. The minutes have been shared and reviewed by the members of the commission prior to this meeting.
Thank you. If there are no questions or requests for changes to the meeting minutes, I'll ask for a motion to adopt the meeting minutes for February 24th.
Madam Chair, I move to adopt the meeting minutes from February 24th.
Moved by Commissioner Barker. Do I have a second?
I second.
I believe I heard Commissioner Nash jumping in there first. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of approving the February 24th meeting minutes, say aye.
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 All those opposed to approving the minutes say nay. Are there any abstentions? All right, the ayes have it, and the minutes are adopted.
The next item on today's agenda is the chair's report.
Thank you, Ms. Blake. So I wanted to share with the public a couple of updates related to the Cannabis Regulatory Commission's efforts as it pertains to equity, and share kind of how we envision moving forward with equity in the future. So in March, the CRC held 3 virtual hearings to solicit public input on social equity recommendations for tax revenue generated by cannabis businesses. Those public hearings were, I think, a success in getting some great input from members of the public. Some of the recommendations for allocations and appropriations for revenues included workforce training initiatives, affordable housing funds, youth services and after-school programs, substance use treatment programs, funding for community improvements such as libraries and parks, financial assistance for prospective cannabis business applicants, and educational programs. The CRC values the public's input, and we are reviewing the data and the information gathered at the public hearings to draft a recommendation report that will subsequently be delivered to the governor and the legislature and will be shared with the public. So I want to thank our public engagement and education committee members for conducting and organizing and conducting those hearings. And I want to thank every member of the public who chose to participate and have their voice heard as to where cannabis revenue dollars should be reinvested for communities. The CRC has also been working in working groups with other state agencies and private partners to address many equity needs, including some that were raised during the public hearings throughout the month of March. We've had a work group dedicated to workforce development that has engaged with the Department of Labor and community colleges to develop a cannabis workplace training program and see what opportunities there may be to fund educational programs for people who are interested in entering the cannabis workplace, so that we have a workforce ready to go and ready to help us build New Jersey's cannabis industry. We also had a work group dedicated to business assistance and providing general business development support. So I'm pleased to share that through partnership with the Office of Innovation and the state's Business Action Center, there is now a brand new Cannabis Business Navigator tool that is available online. So any prospective business owner can go to www.business.nj.gov and get more information about what it takes to operate and stand up a cannabis business. So I'd like to thank our partners for getting this Business Navigator resource tool up and running. And I think it's a great tool that folks should really look to. And then finally, I want to share that access to capital that has been an underlying theme that we have heard at the Cannabis Regulatory Commission repeatedly. And so we have been engaged in some collaborative work with the Economic Development Authority and other private partners to explore potential financial assistance programs. We have been examining the possibility of grants or loans to see what may be most feasible and most ready to launch quickly to help support our New Jersey's prospective cannabis business entrepreneurs. So I'm very pleased with the work that our commission members and our commission staff have been doing to realize and effectuate efforts to advance equity as we move closer to launching this new industry in our garden state. Now, as a state agency, the Cannabis Regulatory Commission is doing a lot of work to advance equity, and to do so in a way that promotes safety as well. And we look to our partners at the local level and the general public to help us effectuate and realize equity goals across the state of New Jersey. Because I do believe we have a shared responsibility for working towards these equity goals and ensuring that we are careful to not repeat the mistakes of the past or the practices of the past that have disproportionately excluded swaths of communities from economic opportunities and from being able to realize their potential. So I'm pleased that some of our municipal officials have set policies in place that echo this need for a safe and accessible cannabis industry. And I do think that all of us, the public, the existing industry, the prospective cannabis industry members, and state and local government officials have worked together to make New Jersey's regulated cannabis framework to be the nation's most comprehensive and one that can meaningfully advance equity in this space. Together, we've created fertile ground for having a medical and recreational cannabis industry with responsible operators and safer products. And as we continue to prepare for the opening of the recreational market, I hope we can all remain vigilant in preserving our accomplishments. Not only should government agencies like the CRC be making deliberate steps to be inclusive, but we also hope to see private individuals, private banks, landlords, suppliers, and employers also take care to afford people equal opportunity to participate in this industry without prejudice. So we need all of you to make this work and for New Jersey's recreational cannabis market to be a success. We look forward to continuing to work with you all to make this happen. And I'm very pleased with the work that we've all been able to accomplish together. And I look forward to helping others participate in the Garden State's green economy. So with that, I will turn it back over to Ms. Blake. Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is the Executive Director's report.
Madam Chair, may I have the floor?
Yes, Director Brown, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, commission members, members of the public who are joining us today. I'm going to cover one thing here, and then I'm going to pass it over to our Deputy Executive Director to cover another. So go to the next slide, please. So in this executive director's update, going to cover two topics, 2019 RFA update, and then an update on recreational license applications. Importantly, we started accepting applications for retailers 9 days ago. So I'm going to first start with the 2019 RFA update. And there, really, we've progressed, but of all the 43 awardees who are still in process, they are all in the investigation and implementation stage. So what that means is that they have had to submit criminal history background checks. They've had to submit corporate documents. They've had to submit other documents that verify the information that was in the application to ensure that what they submitted was truthful and complete. And then additionally, their teams independently from the CRC are working to build out their facilities and get operational. As a reminder, per the final agency decisions, they have to comply with a number of post-award conditions. Some of those include timelines. So, we expect them cultivators vertically integrated to be operational within 18 months, for example. If they had a certification for as being minority owned, women owned, disabled or veteran owned, then we expect them to maintain that certification. And we expect ownership to remain as outlined on the application for a certain time period post award. So that is ongoing. I can say that, in communications with applicants, we may be getting closer to actually getting some of those particularly cultivators permitted and online and actively serving medical patients. I did with the next slide, and before we go to, just want to tee this up, we have received some requests from the public, and certainly we've covered in past meetings data on this industry, on this nascent industry, these awardees as they move through our process. As our chairwoman has mentioned, as I've mentioned, as data becomes available, we are going to share it out. And today we're at a point where we can share out another round of data on these awardees. It is not final, is not complete, but because of interest in the public, because of interest in the stakeholders, from stakeholders, we are sharing this out at this point. So if you could go to the next slide. There's been questions, about the demographics of the awardees, the ownership of the awardees, and what we were presenting here today to the public is the demographic data of the majority ownership of 2019 RFA awardees. This is subject to verification. I mentioned these entities are in the investigation stage, the implementation stage, and we will present this again once permitting is completed. We want to make sure that the public is aware of what this industry looks like and make sure that we're held accountable to the policy decisions that we make. So you can see here of the awardees, 8 are majority owned by Asian Americans, 4 Black or African American, 3 Hispanic or Latino of all races, 7 non-minority, and then 19 are either other, which generally is a combination of different races and ethnicities, or not disclosed, and then 2 have no certification. So again, this is subject to verification. Additional information will be available when permitting is complete, and we are committed to continuing to release data like this as we move forward. I'll also note, as we get into some more data today, you'll see how we're progressing under our new rules. This is, again, an RFA that was issued over almost 3 years ago at this point, based on old rules, old statutes that really aren't on the books anymore. And that's some important context here. It's really the floor for where we can go. And so with that, that's our update on the 2019 RFA. I am now going to introduce our Deputy Executive Director, and I'll just be brief, but I was thinking it was like an opportune date to introduce Ms. Anderson Thomas to the public at one of our meetings, because I think it was about 2 years ago that we got to work together for the very first time. We were both at the Department of Health, Commissioner Del Cid Coso as well. But Kelly and I worked in different branches of the Department of Health. And it was really, we both stepped up to help with implementing field medical stations around the state, essentially 3 field hospitals. I worked with Kelly. She worked on logistics and staffing, and staffed hundreds of nurses and physicians, volunteers, paid, former military, across 3 field hospitals across the state in a matter of weeks. Later that summer, we worked together on expanding testing access. And this is the last thing I'll say. At one point, I remember there was a team of like 3 people who was coordinating all of kind of the testing work that was going on. And we had a whole strike team working on expanding testing. And one day, in one of our morning meetings, they said, well, the team is being redeployed elsewhere and Kelly's taking over. And Kelly did a better job than that team of 3 people once she took over. So I'm happy to introduce Deputy Executive Director Kelly Anderson Thomas to give an application update.
Thank you, Director Brown. Well, let's start off by saying on December 15th, the Commission began to accept applications for Class 1 cultivation, Class 2 manufacturing, and testing laboratories. Subsequently, on this past March 15th, we then began to accept applications for retail cannabis businesses, also described by some as dispensaries. You can go to the next, thank you. During this very short 90-day period, the commission has now received over 675 total applications, with 265 of those just in the past week. This does not include the number This does not include the number of phone calls and other correspondences with stakeholders, both local and state, to ensure that potential applicants have the information needed to successfully submit an application, and to ensure that they also understand the plethora of resources provided by the Commission on its website. I would like to take this time to thank the Commission staff for their dedication and continued hard work, not only as the Commission reviews applications, but also with the day-to-day operations of the Medicinal Cannabis Program and the office in general, as we continue to build a commission from the ground up, because literally that is what we have been doing for almost a year now. It is because of all of you that I can report that of the 626 applications received, roughly 87% were conditional licenses. As the commission continues to express, conditional licenses are the first step for those businesses that may not already have all of their ducks in a row. The conditional licenses allow individuals to provide the required entity forms, along with 3 core documents, which would be their business plan, their management profile, a regulatory compliance plan, and a simple description of how the entity plans on obtaining liability insurance. Award of a conditional license allows the awardee to move forward in the process of finalizing its cannabis business by securing a physical location and obtaining municipality approval and support, submitting the required standard operating procedures and other requirements as listed under the Commission's Notice of Application Acceptance, which is located on our website. Of those 626 applications, 234, or roughly about 37%, were micro businesses or businesses with a proposed structure of 10 or less employees. The remaining 392 were standard businesses. Now, as you can see, a majority of the applications submitted to date have been for Class 1 cultivation, and at about 39%. However, given our most recent opening for retail licenses, retailers are coming in at a close second, with 232 applications submitted as of March 17th. Of the applications submitted to date, 28% have self-identified as a social equity business. Now, please be mindful of when submitting applications as a social equity business that you're including all of the required forms. The notice of application provides a checklist, so we recommend using it, reviewing it before you submit your actual application. However, there's also a certification of social equity business form, which is also located on our website, and that form provides all of the requirements in one place. It's really a one-stop shop for anything that a potential applicant may need. It's also important to note that it needs to be signed, that certification, and notarized and submitted with the proof for the designated social equity category in which the applicant has chosen. If I can offer any advice to any of you, it would be if an applicant is submitting proof of a prior marijuana or related conviction, please remember that the requirement is for at least 2 marijuana or hashish related, disorderly persons offenses, or at least 1 marijuana or hashish related indictable offense. Individuals are confusing these and not submitting the proper proof. And when that happens, we have to pause the review process and kind of retrack and get back out to the applicant, and it delays the process. So we ask that you take a look at the certification, be mindful of the documentation that you are submitting so that we can ensure that we are reviewing the proper material and getting back to you. So of the total applicant pool, 70% have been self-identified as a diversely owned business. It is noted that an entity may self-identify as diversely owned. However, they may not all qualify. So as Director Brown mentioned previously, there is an investigative process after the award, and the Commission will review submitted certifications for confirmation. Additionally, of the total applicant pools, identified persons of interest, now this could be an owner, investor, key stakeholder, or individual with decision-making authority, to just name a few. We have provided aggregate data by race of the total makeup of individuals who have submitted an application. And as you can see here, as Jeff will provide an overview of the potential 68 conditional license under consideration for a license award. Can you move to the next slide, please? Thank you. Of those 68 candidates, there are 230 230 persons of interest. It's noted that they are more diverse than those that were presented in our previous medicinal cannabis awards. And of the applications received, over 371 have begun the review process. Of those that have begun the review process, at least 184 applications have been found incomplete and have been returned to applicants to cure and resubmit. I think it's important to note that when we say that they have been determined to be incomplete, we are not denying them. We are just rejecting them back to the applicant so that they may cure any deficiency that was noted. With that being said, some commonly seen issues that have resulted in the need for curing are the applicant did not include an entity disclosure form. It's important to remember that not only do you have to provide an entity disclosure form for any other additional entity that you name in your application, you actually need one for the entity that is applying for the actual business. Another thing we're seeing is expired government IDs, or the identification card is provided. However, it does not provide a copy of both sides of a license per se. Financial source agreements or management service agreements are not being submitted. Most recent tax returns are not being submitted. We are currently in 2022, so we would need a 2021 tax return. We are seeing 2018, in some cases 2019. We do require the tax return for the prior year. Also, incomplete or missing forms. The forms are missing signatures or they're not notarized. In that instance, they are not a complete form and we would have to reach back out. Also, there are incomplete or no personal history disclosure forms. If you are submitting a business plan and your business and plan and management overview list individuals who have ownership or are managing or decision making, we will need a personal history disclosure form. So please ensure that you are including one. Additionally, the commission requests that applicants upload their required documents into the proper section of the application portal to ensure timely review. In the event that you have provided the information in two separate locations, that is okay. We rather have it twice than not have it or have it in the wrong spot. Just please remember to submit all documents under the proper names and system section. As we continue to accept applications, I ask that all potential applicants and even those that may just have questions regarding the cannabis industry in general to visit the Commission's website. There's a plethora of information ranging from webinars that will walk you through the application process, along with guides for submission of an actual application. The Commission continues to keep a robust FAQ library that answers commonly asked questions, along with application-specific inquiries that have come about over the last 90 days. There's a document library that houses all of the required agency template forms needed for application submission. However, if you see there is a required document where a template is not there, that's because that particular document is the responsibility of the applicant. I can say that additionally, we can move to the next slide. The Commission is happy to announce that our Director of Diversity, I apologize. This is actually going back to one of the options that Diana mentioned. We have partnered with the New Jersey Office of Innovation to develop a business application to assist potential applicants in starting a business. Just want to know that the application is free and easy to use. The Commission and the Office of Innovation have customized the app to assist potential businesses in understanding the process to start an actual business in the state of New Jersey. This includes the process of registering your business, assessing its legal structure, and all of the common business tools to start your own business within the state. Additionally, the Commission is happy to announce that our Director of Diversity and Inclusion, Mr. Wesley McWhite, will record a social equity attestation tutorial that will be posted to our website and provide potential applicants with an overview of the certification and the requirements needed to complete it. Thank you, Director Brown.
Thank you, Director Anderson-Thomas. Madam Chair, yield back to you.
Thank you, Director Brown. Thank you, Ms. Anderson-Thomas, for the insight and the wonderfully detailed data that the CRC staff have been able to put together. And yes, I also want to echo the work of Ms. Tony Ann Blake that she has done to make our CRC website as robust and helpful as it is to the public. So we are hearing the questions and the concerns from the public. We are actively integrating that into the work that we do and into the information that we share back out to the public. So with that, I will turn it back over to Ms. Blake to announce the next agenda item.
Next on the agenda is consideration of delegated authority concerning processing submissions of qualifying patients and caregivers, certifications of healthcare practitioners, and facility modifications.
Thank you. Director Brown, can you please provide a summary of the delegated authority that is needed here?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. For members of the public, you're going to see more of these at meetings, and part of it is following the adoption of our bylaws, the Commission's bylaws. They establish, codify the method by which the Commission can delegate certain authorities to the Executive Director, to staff, to undertake certain core functions of the Commission's statutory charge, regulatory charge. What we're talking about here are really two functions that were adopted in the plan of organization as one set under the Office of Patient and Customer Services. That's the processing of the submissions of qualifying patients, caregivers, and healthcare practitioners. And then the other under the Office of Compliance and Licensing, which are facility modifications. So the Commission receives a very high volume of submissions by new patients. We're still actually averaging between 4,500 and 5,000 patients every month, even where we are with with all other initiatives. Processing these patients expediently is important. Processing their caregivers expediently is important. Ensuring that when healthcare practitioners sign up, and that includes now both physicians as well as nurse practitioners and physician assistants, ensuring that after they register, they can almost immediately begin authorizing patients for the use of medical cannabis. This requires that the patient, our Office of Patient and Customer Service, can continue to handle that on behalf of the Commission. And so the recommendation is to codify this delegation to the Executive Director or the Executive Director's designee. Secondly, for facility modifications, this is a routine function that is conducted by members of our Office of Compliance and Licensing. If an alternative treatment center or a cannabis business wants to, say, change the function of a room, expand their inventory cage, maybe add new point of sale systems, expand their dispensary, they have to file an application for a facility modification pursuant to our rules. That is reviewed by staff. It's an established process. Our staff is well versed in it. They've been handling it for years, and so they can move on those expediently. I also ask and recommend the Commission approve this delegation of authority to codify the fact that our Office of Patient and Customer Services can continue to process qualifying patients, caregivers, and healthcare practitioners. And finally, that the Office of Compliance and Licensing, through me, through the Executive Director, can continue to process and adjudicate facility modifications. I recommend that the Commission approve this delegation authority. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Brown. Do I hear a motion from the commissioners on the delegated authority to the Executive Director concerning processing patient, caregiver registration and facility modifications?
Madam Chair, I move to adopt this resolution concerning the designation of authority to the Executive Director to approve, deny, or renew applications for qualifying patients, caregivers, healthcare practitioners, and certain facility modifications.
I second that, Madam Chair.
Moved by Commissioner Del Coso, seconded by Commissioner Barker. Is there any discussion on this motion for delegated authority? Hearing none, Ms. Blake, can you please call the vote?
Commissioner Barker,
Nay.
Commissioner Del Coso,
Yes.
Vice Chair Delgado,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Chairwoman Waynu.
Yes.
The resolution passes. Next on the agenda is consideration of delegated authority for product recall and destruction processes.
Thank you. Director Brown, can you please provide a summary for the need for this delegated authority?
Absolutely. And I'll start off by noting how this one is different from the previous one in that this is not, the recommendation here is not a delegation of authority simply to the executive director, but jointly the executive director and the chair to act on issues of product recall and product destruction in the cases of contamination, in the cases where there's issues of product safety, issues that affect the public health, safety, and welfare, particularly of patients. And so, in the course of business, and especially now that we've implemented our interim third-party testing standards, products are tested. They're tested to make sure they have for potency. They're tested to make sure they're not contaminated. They don't have heavy metals. They don't have mold. A whole realm of factors. And when they fail those tests, they cannot be sold to patients or caregivers. We have a regulation that states that medicinal cannabis shall be processed in a manner that's free from mold, rot, and other bacterial diseases. In addition, it has to be tested and pass those tests in order to make it to market. So when products fail those tests, either because they're found to be contaminated or they have incorrect potencies or have ingredients in them that are not supposed to be there. It's often important that we act quickly on these things. Our staff is great at identifying it and ensuring that alternative treatment centers quarantine products so that it doesn't get to patients. Since we've implemented interim third-party testing, those ATCs that are using it, they have to test before they can release a batch to dispense to the public. But nonetheless, when you have a batch that's designated as contaminated, not fit for sale, it's important, particularly when it's has mold, bacterial rot, or other factors that we can act to dispose of it quickly. And so rather than waiting for the next commission meeting to come, the recommendation is simply to delegate authority to allow the executive director jointly to act with the chair on behalf of the commission to issue orders of product destruction and recall. So in order to make that process more efficient, ensure that the commission can respond expediently and safely to issues of contamination with products, the recommendation is to approve this delegation of authority to jointly the executive director and the chair.
Thank you, Director Brown. Do I hear a motion on this delegated authority to the executive director and the chair concerning orders to recall or destroy cannabis items?
Madam Chair, I move to adopt the resolution for designation of authority to the executive director and chair of the Cannabis Regulatory Commission to request or issue recall orders.
Moved by Commissioner Nash. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Del Cid Coso. Is there any discussion on this motion? Hearing none. Ms. Blake, can you please call the vote?
Commissioner Barker,
Nay.
Commissioner Del Cid Coso,
Yes.
Vice Chair Delgado,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Chairwoman Waynu.
Yes.
The resolution passes. Next on the agenda is the consideration of applications for conditional license.
Thank you. Director Brown, can you please provide a summary of the applications received and the board's action on this?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. And stay on this slide while I give a summary, and then we'll move through some of the following slides. So on August 19th, of 2021, the commission adopted rules. Those included rules for the acceptance of applications. Importantly, application acceptance began for cultivators, manufacturers, and testing laboratories on December 15th. That was done pursuant to a notice of application acceptance, which outlined exactly how applications would be reviewed, the requirements for applications, the scoring process. It also outlined the priority by which we would review those applications. I bring this up because the reason we're considering a slate of conditional applications is because conditional applications receive priority review in our process. Deputy Executive Director Anderson Thomas gave an overview of where we are today with applications. When we put together this recommendation and began to finalize these for commission consideration, it was right before we began accepting for retailers. So at that time, we had received 389 total applications. And of those 389, 371 had begun the review process. And previously I've shared that our goal is to get to under a 90-day review process for conditional applications. And I'm pleased to share, just reiterate what our Deputy Executive Director said. Up for consideration today are 68 conditional applications for approval, but that is not the extent of our work. I mentioned that as of the date of us kind of running the numbers for this recommendation, 371 applications had begun the review process in some form or fashion. And in fact, we had already issued initial determinations on 184 others who were deficient and needed to cure their applications. So if the commission acts to approve these applications, we will have then acted on over 250 applications that began submitting in December 15th. And I can tell you that we've actually beat 90 days on some of these applications. Some of them might be more, but we've actually beat 90 days on some of them. I'm just going to briefly go over the review process for conditional license applicants. Importantly, first, applicants are assigned to priority. So whether they're a social equity business, a diversely owned business, an impact zone business, they get bonus points for having a collective bargaining agreement or for residency, or they're just in the general pool. They're assigned to priority. This can also include whether they're a micro business or not. Secondly, that priority is verified. So staff go in, our Deputy Executive Director shared about the social equity certifications and ensuring those are filled out and the underlying documentation is submitted with the application. That's so that we can verify the application is being reviewed in the priority that it's designated. The application is then reviewed for completeness. We make sure that everything that's supposed to be submitted pursuant to regulation and that notice of application acceptance is there. Those that are complete are then scored. For conditional applicants, the scoring is on three measures: their business plan, their regulatory compliance plan, and their plan to obtain liability insurance. This is pass-fail scoring. So either they meet the requirement or they don't. So those that do pass scoring, they're then given an initial review for qualification, limitations, financial management, financial source or management services agreement review. And what this review is, it's a look to make sure the owners don't, own a number of other businesses in the state that would potentially disqualify them from consideration. Perhaps it's initial review of terms of financial service agreements and management services agreements to make sure that they're not overtly out of line with what's in our regulations. It's a look at that the applicant is qualified to hold a conditional license. Conditional applicants, any owner with any owner that has control over the business has to have made less than $200,000 in the preceding tax year or under $400,000 if filing jointly. And so if after that, then we conduct quality control, and then there's a recommendation to the Cannabis Regulatory Commission Board. I can tell you that all 68 of the applications before you for consideration have gone through all those stages and have met the requirements of each stage. And if you go to the next slide here, please. So our deputy executive director shared this previously, but to be transparent, and I'm not going to say we're going to do this every round, but I know that there's been some stakeholders that have questioned some things regarding equity in our licensing process, and it's important to disclose this first round because this is a historic action that this commission is prepared to take. These are the very first recreational licenses that this commission is going to issue. And so we want to be transparent with stakeholders. We want to be transparent with the community about what we're doing. And so of the 68 applications recommended for approval, overall that represents 230 persons of interest. 28% of those persons of interest identify as Black or African American, 39% white, 17% did not report, and 8% Asian. I can tell you just under 10% identified as Hispanic or Latino. So as Kelly shared earlier, this is a more diverse cohort than the overall applicant pool that's in these 68 applications recommended for approval. So please go to the next slide. When it comes to diversely owned businesses in this cohort, 17 are certified minority business enterprises, 8 certified minority women business enterprises, and 12 are women business enterprises. Next slide, please. When we look at the majority ownership of these awardees, it's an even more diverse picture. In fact, nearly 50% of the majority owners of this cohort have identified on their application as being African American or Black. And so the other slide was the total persons of interest. Here, it's based on majority ownership, essentially demographics based on 51% or more of the ownership of these entities. Next slide, please. So I'm not gonna read all these. There's 68. The recommendation memo will be posted online after this meeting, so that you can see. But this is the first 24, and I'm just gonna ask to pause here for a couple seconds so that folks watching can read this list. And yes, next slide. Thank you. So this is the next 25. If you don't mind going back one slide. I just want to pause to make sure folks can read this list. And this is the list that is before the commission. Again, all these applications have made it through all those rounds of review. And before I make the final recommendation, and you can go to the next slide for the last cohort here of the applicants that are recommended for approval. We do see a number, we do see financial source agreements as part of these applications. And one of the things I wanted to emphasize is, number one, the importance that applicants and potential applicants read our regulations when it comes to financial source agreements and management services agreements. One of the things we're really concerned about is unfair provisions, unreasonable provisions in these agreements, things that might be one-sided to the investor or the lender. And we want to make sure that applicants are well protected. So the commission adopted comprehensive regulations to do that. But we need help from applicants. You can read our regulations, you can read them on our website, educate yourself. And when you're looking at these agreements, have our regulations there, look at the provisions, look at our regulations. If you can have an attorney look at it too, make sure they comply with what's in the regulations. Those are there to prevent predatory lending, to prevent predatory business practices. And it's really important to us that entities comply with those. Secondly, I do want to note next steps here before moving on. So conditional applicants, if issued a license, that's the first step in the process. Anyone approved by the commission today will be contacted by the commission staff in the next week. What we'll do is walk you through next steps. That includes submitting payment for the conditional license, as well as expectations on how to submit a conditional conversion application, because the next step in the licensure process for conditional applicants is to convert to an annual license. That's a more substantial application. So please go back and look at our notice of application, look at the resources on our website to understand what that entails and what those requirements are. Two big things are having your site and having municipal approval. We will look for that, as well as having all the standard operating procedures in place to operate your business. There's also an even more in-depth look at the financing and the operations of the business to ensure it complies with the qualification requirements in our rules, the limitations, and again, those financial service provisions and management service provisions that I mentioned earlier. The conditional conversion application will be available in the portal starting on March 31st. So our goal is to try and get everybody through this process and paid, and if approved by the commission, license is issued so that they can start working on those conditional conversion applications. So I wanted to thank all the staff who've worked on this. It's been all hands on deck. It's a team effort, and this is the first slate of many. And again, I can't stress this enough. These are the first recreational licenses that the commission is going to issue. So with that, it is my humble pleasure to recommend this slate of conditional applicants for approval to the Cannabis Regulatory Commission.
Thank you, Director Brown. I also want to applaud all the staff that have been working tirelessly to review all the applications that have been submitted, working with the applicants to make sure that proper documentation and all the application materials are provided so that folks know what they need to do to resubmit an application for complete review. I will happily ask for a motion from our commissioners to adopt a resolution to approve this slate of 68 conditional license applicants.
Chairwoman Waynu, I move that we approve the consideration conditional licenses.
So moved by Vice Chair Delgado. Do I have a second?
Madam Chair, can I just, may I have the floor for a brief minute before we second this motion?
Commissioner Barker, if you're hoping to discuss the actual matter, that it will be open for discussion once the motion for adoption is seconded.
Okay, I will wait.
Do
I second the motion, Madam Chair.
Seconded by Commissioner Del Cid Coso. Is there any discussion on this motion?
Oh, Madam Chair, may I have the floor now?
You may.
Oh, thank you very much. And so at the top and at the outset, I definitely want to repeat two comments, one made by Executive Director Brown and one by our chairwoman. This is the first action that this CRC has taken to move licenses forward, and that cannot be stressed enough. Secondly, thank you, major thank you, as Madam Chairwoman said, to all of our staff that have been working tirelessly to get us where we are today. Cannot thank you enough. I just want to briefly reiterate that we want you to apply. Yes, we want you to apply. And when you have a minute, take a look at the slides that our Deputy Executive Director Anderson Thomas laid out and review the data breakdowns. If you are not sure how to apply, please go to our website or reach out to our Office for Assistance. We have our Office of Minority, Disabled Veteran, and Women Cannabis Business Development up and running. And our director, Wesley McWhite, he can connect you with resources to inform you about the process. If you know about the process, please share it with others and encourage them to join, whether you're an individual or a leader of a member organization. We are actively working to set a fair and equitable table. And we are trying to provide the plates and the cutlery and the food and the drinks and the desserts for you to be well-fed and nourished. But we need you to come hungry and ready to eat, ready to step up and take your rightful seat at the table. So please, I cannot stress this enough. Be encouraged to apply here in New Jersey. Our applications are accepted on a rolling basis based on market demands. And as of now, it will remain open for the foreseeable future. So we hope to see you in our industry soon, especially the brothers and sisters and communities that have been impacted and devastated by the war on drugs. The time is now. Thank you. And with that, I yield my time, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Barker. Is there any other discussion on this motion to adopt the slate of 68 applicants for conditional licenses? All right, hearing no further discussion. Ms. Blake, can you please call the vote?
Commissioner Barker,
Aye.
Commissioner Del Cid-Coso,
Yes.
Vice Chair Delgado,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Chairwoman Waynu.
Yes.
The resolution passes overwhelmingly. Next on the agenda is consideration of reissuance of 2019 RFA award for medical dispensary applications.
Thank you, Ms. Blake. Director Brown, can you please provide a summary of the need for reissuance of this particular award from the 2019 RFA?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. Thank you. And thank you, commissioners, for approving that slate of conditional licenses. Again, can't stress how important that is. And those are the first businesses to get a foot forward here in New Jersey. So thank you. So back in December, the commission acted on the 2019 RFA dispensaries, of which there were 30 awardees. I shared at the last meeting that one of those awardees had rescinded, not accepted their award, and so ostensibly that award was returned to the commission. So here we are recommending to reissue that award in accordance with the original recommendation memo, the original methodology. And so the awardee that did not accept their award was NJ Kindness, which was issued in the 2019 RFA in the southern region, and that was and because they did not accept, the next highest scoring applicant in the southern region that has not received an award, next slide please, is Pima LLC. And Pima scored, I believe, just over 200 points in that RFA. So it is our recommendation that in accordance with the original recommendation memo, in accordance with that methodology, the commission issue this award to the next highest scoring applicant in the southern region, which is Pima LLC, control number 19-0052. That will ensure even distribution of awards in the 2019 RFA between North, Central, and South. And additionally, this award should contain all the conditions in the final agency decision that the other awards contained. That included maintaining verification and maintenance of any certifications, whether it be minority owned, women owned, or veteran owned. Restrictions on changes in ownership. Ensuring they operate in accordance with what's in the application. So our recommendation is to approve this with the conditions that are in the original recommendation memo and in accordance with that methodology. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Brown. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution concerning the reissuance of this 2019 RFA award for medicinal dispensary permit?
Madam Chair, I move to adopt this resolution.
Moved by Commissioner Nash. Is there a second?
I second, Madam Chair.
Seconded by Vice Chair Delgado. Is there any discussion on this motion to reissue the 2019 RFA award? Hearing none, Ms. Blake, can you please call the vote?
Vice Chair Delgado,
Yes.
Commissioner Del Cid-Coso,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker,
Nay.
Chairwoman Waynu.
Yes.
The resolution passes. The next item on the agenda is a discussion on expanded alternative treatment center certifications.
Thank you, Ms. Blake. Director Brown, can you please provide a summary of the expanded alternative treatment center certifications that have been submitted to the CRC?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. You can go to the next slide, please. So we've covered this before in the executive director's update. And I'll just start off by saying this, getting this market launched is of the highest priority to the commission. It's important to get it launched expediently. It's important to get it launched equitably and safely. It's really those three things that we're really striving for in getting this done. And we want to make sure that it's done in accordance with the law and regulations. We've received 8 certifications from alternative treatment centers. This is by law. They can certify to the commission that they have enough supply. They have operations in place to make sure that patient access is not impacted by recreational cannabis sales, have municipal approval, and pursuant to guidance that we issued in the fall, also have submitted plans to address social equity and safety as part of the conversion. Next slide, please. So I'll just start off by saying this. 2 years and 3 days ago, I was talking about, when Kelly and I, our deputy executive director, first worked together. But, around that time, March, I think it was 21st, 2022 or 2020, New Jersey began that 80-day COVID-19 stay-at-home order. And in the weeks leading up to that order, people were frantic. Schools switched to virtual. Many people began working remotely, and many sought to stock up on household supplies, necessities. There were lines at stores. Medicinal cannabis was no different. New Jersey had 10 dispensaries at the time, and many saw lines hours long in that lead up to that stay-at-home order. Additionally, ATCs, alternative treatment centers, like all employers, had to contend with managing a workforce amidst unprecedented uncertainty and fear. During March 2020, the Department of Health and the alternative treatment centers collaborated to respond to the pandemic, to keep doors of ATCs open and to keep patients safe and able to access their medicine. We held frequent calls with the industry. We listened to their concerns. We issued waivers to help the industry adapt. And we gave guidance on what to do when a staff member was exposed and how to implement COVID-19 protocols at cannabis facilities. You may be asking what this has to do with ATC certifications, but I'll get to that. Because of these efforts and that collaboration, while there were, of course, stressors on the market, there were no long-term closures of facilities. There were no market-wide shortages of product, and patients could continue to access their medicine. I bring this up because we are once again at the precipice of an event that will bring stressors on the market, albeit for a much more positive reason, the launching of recreational cannabis sales, but nonetheless an event that needs to be planned for to ensure submitted from the alternative treatment centers to expand to allow adult use sales. They're required to show they have municipal approval, prove they have adequate supply, and show they have adequate plans to ensure patient access, and then also submit a plan addressing social equity and safety. They also have to pass an inspection showing that they can operate in compliance with all our regulations, including packaging and labeling, product testing, and have the right protocols in place to prevent anyone under the age of 21 who isn't a patient from purchasing cannabis items. So all 8 have submitted the requisite municipal approvals. I'm happy to report that a few are definitely there on supply, with another cohort very close to being there. Canopy in the medicinal cannabis market has increased 80,000 square feet in the last 6 months, and that's not including what's coming on the 2019 RFA. And we expect some of the 2019 RFA winners to be completing the permitting process to backstop medicinal cannabis production soon. That said, some work still needs to be done and some important work. The overall canopy in the market is still far undersupplied for where New Jersey needs to be to support a vibrant medicinal cannabis and recreational market. And just to put a number on that context, if you look at what we would consider the best case scenario, and I think what the best case scenario submitted by industry numbers, I think our projections show the market is still undersupplied by about 100,000 pounds for recreational. I'm not talking about medicinal there, for potential recreational demand, and that's assuming a low number of recreational demand initially, essentially 4 ounces per year per consumer in New Jersey, and 1 ounce per year of consumers coming across state lines from the overall media markets in which New Jersey is a part. So that's one. Another big issue that remains to be addressed is patient access. And we had a group huddle with our Office of Compliance and Licensing earlier this week, and not one individual had full confidence in the plans that have been submitted. And I'm not saying they're bad, but they need work. And it's important to note that we have to solve for the most vulnerable patients here, those with terminal cancer, with ALS, MS, and other debilitating diseases, patients who have trouble getting to the dispensary on a good day. How do we ensure that they have no disruption in their care? The other issue pertains to equity, and I know that this is one that's critical to this commission and probably critical to getting approval by this commission. Many of the equity plans are lacking in specifics and measurable goals, and that's something that we want to address. Finally, and this was a relatively new one this week based on some feedback from external parties, but we are in the process of verifying that all the labor peace agreements that are submitted as part of these ATC certifications indeed meet the requirements of the law as being submitted by bona fide labor organizations. I'll say this, the CRC is not in the business of picking unions. That's up to the workers to do, but we want to make sure that the ATCs are in fact in compliance with the standards of the law and have indeed, as the law requires, labor peace agreements with bona fide labor organizations. So those concerns being what they are, I'm extremely confident in our ability collaboratively, the CRC and the industry, to fix these issues and work together to get this market off the ground quickly. We've done it before. We did it in March 2020, when in a matter of weeks, we put into place a number of policies and a number of protocol changes at the dispensaries to protect patients and to keep places open. We can do this together here. And so here's what we need from ATCs. Immediately following this meeting, we're going to release some suggestions on patient access and minimum inventory levels for medicinal patients. This includes things like exclusive patient hours, exclusive point of sale systems, and patient access lines, telephone lines for patients to call if they have trouble accessing the dispensary. Other factors as well. We'll be asking ATCs to commit to these minimum measures to ensure a smooth transition for patients. This will also help us recommend ATCs that are in the process of building canopy for expansion earlier, because on that minimum supply, we will know there's a minimum inventory in place for patients. On social equity, our rate, this is something that we haven't really highlighted much in a meeting, and I want to because it's important. Our regulations state that as a condition of being licensed as any cannabis business, including an expanded alternative treatment center, licensees must make a good faith effort to hire people with past marijuana convictions and people from economically disadvantaged areas. So we want a commitment from alternative treatment centers to comply. They will have to comply with that regulation, but we want a commitment as part of this process to meet that requirement in our regulations, and a commitment to periodic reporting on progress to meet those goals. Here's what we're going to do at the CRC and what staff is going to work on. Starting next week, we're going to send an interdisciplinary team to each ATC that has submitted a certification. This will include representatives from the Office of the Executive Director, Counsel's Office, Office of Compliance and Licensing, and Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Our goal will be to address any issues with the certifications on the spot, answer any questions the ATCs have about transition, and do an on-site assessment to ensure regulatory compliance with our recreational rules. We will do assessments at all 8 ATCs that have submitted certifications over the next 2 weeks, and we'll be prepared to make a recommendation to the Commission on any that meet the full requirements of the law and regulations immediately following those visits. If things are not there yet, we will schedule additional visits, calls, issue, additional guidance, whatever we need to do to get this across the finish line. And we need the industry to work with us on those factors that still need attention and still need work to get there. Secondly, we're going to be prioritizing recommendations for the permitting and facility expansions to help expand supply as quickly as possible. I've talked to all the ATCs. I know there's good stuff in the works. We've just introduced a whole bunch of competition to the market. So we want to help get what's in the works across the finish line and are committed to do so. And we're going to continue working to get this market going. Finally, we'll be one of the things we shared on an ATC call was the fact that we wanted ATCs to explore exclusive home delivery options for patients. And so we had some delivery plans pending. We are going to be approving those so that those ATCs can start delivery exclusively for patients, because when we get to recreational sales, this will present another options for getting medicinal cannabis to patients in what is undoubtedly going to be crowded dispensaries. And we already do have some crowded dispensaries, which is why patient access is so critical to this. Our goal is to work with the industry, and we need the industry to work with us here, and I'm confident that they will, so that at the very next CRC meeting, we have a cohort of ATCs that are turnkey ready to launch this market here, simply pending a vote by this commission. And for any that are still not there, hopefully a conditional, ready for conditional approval pending certain timelines and regulatory milestones that we can work to get done. The CRC hasn't been in existence for even a year, and we've done cutting edge rules for the recreational market. We've issued awards for 44 medicinal cannabis permits. Today, we've given 68 new businesses a huge step forward to competing. While we may not be 100% there today, we can get there. And I assure you that, staff is committed to doing this, but, we need the industry to work with us. We're almost there. We have a few things to address, and when we address them, I'm happy to return to this body with a further update.
Thank you, Director Brown. I will ask for a motion on the consideration of these ATC expansion certifications.
Madam Chair, I move to table the consideration of the ATC expansion of operations for adult use today. After hearing the Executive Director's report just now, it is clear that we are not quite ready to open up the adult use market in New Jersey. Our medical patients are our priority, and we would like to prevent, to the extent possible, any supply shortages, long wait times, and other safety concerns that may impact the municipalities in which these dispensaries are located in. So I move to table this consideration of expanded ATC certifications until CRC. Our staff is able to work with the ATCs to ensure that we are ready to move forward and successfully serve both the medicinal patients and adult use consumers. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Del Coso. We have a motion to table consideration of these certifications from ATCs. Do I have a second on this motion to table?
I second.
Seconded by Commissioner Nash. Is there any discussion on this motion to table consideration of the expanded ATC certifications?
Madam Chair, may I have the permission to take the floor?
Yes, Commissioner Nash, go right ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to say, while the commission recognizes the desire of the public to get the personal use market up and running, it is a shared responsibility to do so. The requirements that are set forth in the rules, they must be adhered to by all applicants and not just some. So with that said, our hope is that the guidance that the commission provides here today will move the process along so that we can get these ATCs open in a responsible manner to meet the needs of the patients and the personal use market. Thank you. Madam Chair, I yield the floor back to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. I'll just take a moment to echo that some of the items and issues raised here by Director Brown do seem to be pretty consistent with some of the comments that have been received by by the commission from members of the public during our CRC public meetings. I am happy to hear that some of the ATCs have undertaken efforts to get ready for the launch of this historic industry in New Jersey, given the concerns and considerations raised by Director Brown and the staff, as well as the requirement for the CRC to consider not just a given ATC's readiness, but also statewide readiness and patient access protections. I do sincerely hope that our ATCs will work with the CRC staff to understand the steps that they need to take to become ready. I'm encouraged that the staff are ready to do a little extra hand-holding where it is needed. I would look forward to hearing updates from the industry and staff so that the CRC can quickly launch the adult use marketplace once any deficiencies are rectified, ATC readiness is secured, and statewide readiness is secured. I believe Commissioner Del Coso is spot on in wanting to make sure that we have a successful rollout of the adult use industry here, one that mitigates any disruptions to patient access to their medicine, one that provides some distributed access to adult use cannabis across the state, and one that can help protect us against some of the initial rollout obstacles and troubles that other jurisdictions have encountered across the country. I think New Jersey has done a fantastic job in establishing a strong foundation for the adult use cannabis industry. And I look forward to getting it off the ground once we have updates from our commission staff who feel confident and ready that moving forward on the ATC expansion certifications is an appropriate step. And so I'm looking forward to having our ATCs help them getting across that finish line. Is there any other discussion on this motion to table?
Madam Chair, may I have the floor briefly?
Yes, Commissioner Barker.
Thank you, Executive Director Brown and the Office of Compliance and Licensing for your due diligence here. Based on the discussions and deliberations with the CRC staff, it does seem like we are still in the process of determining if the ATCs are ready for adult use sales. And the CRC, we have repeatedly expressed our desire to advance a safe and equitable industry here in New Jersey, both for medicinal and personal use. And as Executive Director Brown alluded to earlier during his remarks, we are right on the cusp of transitioning. And as we do, we must remain focused on the big picture, right? That part of the reason cannabis was legalized was to right the wrongs of the failed drug war for people and communities most harmed, to provide accessible, tested cannabis products that patients and consumers can rely on for safety and overall well-being. And we don't want to rush this and get it wrong. We are working appropriately, not slowly, but appropriately to advance a marketplace that is developed as right as possible so that we, as Chairwoman Wayno alluded to earlier, set a new regulatory standard for the cannabis industry. We are really looking to make equity very real and tangible. And so as potential first movers in this space, we are looking for ATCs to make equity, to evidence and specifically demonstrate their plans for equity. And we must be honest and intentional about who is benefiting and who we hope to see benefit from the legal cannabis industry. I look forward to seeing more specific initiatives detailing how ATCs plan to help the most harmed people and communities. As much as this is a new business opportunity, we cannot and must not treat this like business as usual. ATCs are also required to have sufficient supply for patients based on the CRC's estimates. required to show that patients will not be disturbed in their ability to access their medicine. And that labor agreements will be maintained so that our workforce develops in a fair and beneficial manner. Again, as Director Brown alluded to, CRC staff is willing, ready, and able to meet with ATCs to offer more recommendations and suggestions. My hope is that all ATCs, that all potential license holders for that matter, are looking to work with us, to advance the industry here in New Jersey in an equitable and safe manner. We plan to continue engaging with ATCs on this process as staff continues their investigation and review of the certifications. We are partners. I repeat, we are partners in this, and I look forward to revisiting this discussion at the appropriate time. Thank you, and with that, Madam Chair, I yield my time.
Thank you, Commissioner Barker. Is there any further discussion?
Madam Chair, can I have the floor?
Yes, Vice Chair Delgado, go ahead.
Yeah, I see, my recommendation would be this. I see that April, there's no meeting for us, there's no commission meeting in April. I would recommend that if the ATCs, if Commissioner Brown and the ATCs are able to cure their shortfalls, that we highly consider meeting in April in order to move this market forward. Because at the end of the day, the personal use cannabis market is not open here in New Jersey. That's my recommendation.
Thank you, Vice Chair Delgado. Any further discussion on this motion to table consideration? Hearing no further discussion, Ms. Blake, can you please call the vote on this motion to table consideration of the ATC expansion certifications? Ms. Blake, I believe you are on mute.
Commissioner Barker,
Aye.
Commissioner Delsid Koso,
Yes.
Vice Chair Delgado,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Chairwoman Wayno.
Yes.
The move to table this motion is passed. Next, we have the open public comment period. The specific topic open for comment is consideration of medicinal cannabis needs, which can include medical conditions that should be considered for participation in the Medicinal Cannabis Program, patient education or counseling needs, and medicinal product expiration dates. Our first speaker today will be Mary Bridgman, clinical professor at Rutgers, Ernest Mario School of Pharmacy. If Ms. Bridgman is present, would you raise your hand so we can see you? Okay. I see you. Hold on one second.
Madam Chair, may I have 1 minute while Tony Ann is promoting Dr. Bridgman?
Yes, Director Brown.
I just wanted to make sure that the public was aware that Dr. Bridgman and Dr. Becker were both on the medicinal marijuana review panel, which was established under the Department of Health to look at new conditions and have collaborated with the program over many years. That was the extent of my comments. Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Dr. Bridgman and Dr. Becker for taking time out today.
Thank you. Ms. Blake, are we ready to proceed?
Yes. Ms. Bridgman, you can go ahead.
Excellent, great. Well, thank you so much, Executive Director Brown, Madam Chair, and members of the Cannabis Regulatory Commission. Thank you for this invitation to speak today and for the opportunity to share my perspectives on this critically important issue at a particularly historic and relevant time. My name is Mary Bridgman. I'm a clinical professor at the School of Pharmacy at Rutgers University. I'm adult internal medicine clinical pharmacist at Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital in New Brunswick. I am a researcher with an interest in observing patterns and behaviors of use of patients utilizing cannabis for therapeutic reasons. And I have, as Executive Director Brown pointed out, served as a member of the New Jersey Department of Health's Medicinal Marijuana Review Panel. I was invited to speak on the subject of protecting and expanding access for medicinal cannabis patients. And in my remarks today, I'll speak briefly about the potential opportunities and influences of clinician education, research, and addressing disparities in access as I see them. And if we can go to the next slide, please. First and foremost, in considering the protection and expansion of access to medical cannabis in New Jersey amid an emerging adult use marketplace, I need to point out the limited formal training most clinicians have related to cannabis as medicine. Back in 2019, we saw the publication of the first systematic review of healthcare professionals' beliefs, knowledge, and concerns surrounding medical cannabis use. This was an analysis of 26 studies that were intended to evaluate these perspectives. And the findings of this analysis suggest that while healthcare providers may be generally supportive of medical cannabis use in clinical practice, there is a near unanimous lack of self-perceived knowledge regarding clinical effects and concerns about direct harm to patients, as well as indirect societal harms attributed to cannabis use. Just to draw an analogy to my world as a pharmacist, when a new medication becomes available, clinicians receive education and guidance about use of that medication, delineated in the medication's prescribing information. Of course, medical cannabis doesn't come with a prescribing guideline or standardized guidance on clinical use. And this is one factor that's resulted in healthcare provider reluctance to incorporate medical cannabis into clinical practice. And if we can go to the next slide, I just wanted to spend a moment mentioning that healthcare providers need guardrails and guidance in how to navigate therapeutic use of cannabis. And in this discussion surrounding expanding access for medical cannabis patients, I would implore the CRC consider how it can support healthcare providers in incorporating cannabis into their practices, given a dearth of scientific evidence, safety, and best practice guidelines on just how to do that. Providers additionally require training on how to create a safe space for patients to disclose recreational or adult use of cannabis, and even for our medical patients to disclose that they are in fact medical users without a fear of stigmatization. And I also believe that the CRC plays a crucial role in the adoption of product and consumer safety protocols. I'm thrilled to hear the discussion here today. And again, additional protocols that can help to avoid inadvertent harm, as we've already seen in discussions related to poison prevention packaging. If we can go to the next slide, I just want to underscore that there is a need to support clinician and dispensary staff education, as medical cannabis is far more likely to be considered in a clinical care plan if medical professionals who authorize it are well-trained and confident regarding its clinical effects. I believe education interventions and tools to ensure clinicians are providing certain essential counseling points to all medical cannabis users are imperative in addressing these needs. I would encourage the CRC to consider establishing evidence-based education standards for dispensary staff and members of the healthcare team alike, and to explore strategies to help clinicians navigate the complexities of this therapy. Clinical education might include offering of a standardized consent form or consistent language so that clinicians are all on board and conveying the same or at least a consistent messaging to potential patients with regards to known risks and limitations of our current evidence. Finally, related to the topic of education, I would challenge the CRC to consider how to reach those clinicians who might be considering incorporating cannabis into clinical care for their patients, but who are unsure of the nuances of ensuring safe and effective use. Promoting clinician education through the creation of safe educational spaces where providers can work through cases and share practice-based learning, as with the health education model established through the Project ECHO or Extension for Community Healthcare Outcomes, should be evaluated. A point I just wanted to make, if we can go to the next slide, in the context of protecting and expanding therapeutic use of cannabis, It's undeniable that research is imperative to advancing our science and for informing policy decisions. It's clear that federal prohibitions have hindered bench and clinical research, which lag far behind current public policy. I ask that the CRC, in the absence of a clinical registration license, which itself may hold institutional and structural barriers to execution, to consider a platform or a mechanism for connecting researchers interested in advancing science and informing policy through observation of medical cannabis use behaviors, connect those individuals with dispensaries and patients who are eager to help. We know that from our own experience in navigating peer review and in attempts to publish research findings, science demands a generalizability of results, and observations of a population's behavior are just much more robust when a true representative sampling of that population is made. For my final point here, I would ask the CRC to consider the ability to promote outcomes research from de-identified sales data, as it has been demonstrated to be possible in New York and Florida. There's a wealth of information that can be learned from this real-world data set, from demographics of users, patient use behaviors, average dose and amount of cannabinoid consumed, and a myriad of other key data indicators to potentially inform health policy and practice alike. With my final slide, I'll just conclude by saying that former US Surgeon General C. Everett Koop once said, "Drugs don't work in patients who don't take them." And that's a painful truth in healthcare worldwide. And it's often the reality that patients don't take prescribed medications because they can't afford them. Medical cannabis is certainly not exempt from this consideration in reality. And we know the cost and lack of coverage by health insurers renders medical cannabis an inaccessible therapeutic option for a segment of individuals who may be eligible according to their medical histories. It's apparent that protecting and increasing medical cannabis access necessitates incorporation of evidence-based policies and programs that are intended to address and to help minimize these structural barriers that result in a disparity of access among qualified individuals. I conclude by just asking for your consideration in addressing these three essential areas that are necessary for protecting and expanding access to cannabis for those with medical eligibility. And I certainly appreciate and thank you for your time here today.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Alex Becker. Alex Becker, if you are present, please raise your hand. Alex Becker. I don't see. Oh, there we go. I thought I just saw him.
Tony, and he's in the attendee list.
I'm looking at the attendee. I missed him for a second. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Becker. Mr. Becker, go ahead.
Dr. Becker, I think you just need to unmute yourself.
Unmute myself. Okay, can you hear me
There you
now?
are.
Okay. Okay, you should be. Okay, I prefer to member of the panel concentrate on my slides. So do you have my slides?
Yes, your slides are up. So we're on
My
advancements.
name is Alex Becker. I'm chair of Medicinal Cannabis Review Panel, and panel's objective was to rigorously evaluate the requests from the public for the use of cannabis for new indication and approve or deny petitions. The aim of my short presentation today is to describe the priorities for medical cannabis research in the coming years. Cannabis is increasingly used as an alternative treatment for a variety of conditions, There are approximately 3.6, next slide, please. There are approximately 3.6 million Americans in 34 states treated with cannabis. These patients want to know what product to take for what condition and need guidance on dosing and safety profile of commercial products. Despite tremendous research effort, more than 20,000 scientific articles in the last decade, this information is for the most part missing. Moreover, our understanding of the endocannabinoid system is limited, which in turn precludes the development of new therapies. Next slide, please. Most states approve medicinal cannabis for listed condition. You can see it on our left side. Pain being by far the #1 indication, but the list is constantly expanding. Investigators in 70s, 80s, and 90s had aimed at alleviating the symptoms of the disease, more specifically reducing pain, anxiety, improving appetite. Some authors even suggested a term, interesting, restored self, which was used by one of their patients. In this study, patients with chronic pain had only modest reduction of pain after treatment, but dramatically improved quality of life. New research is focusing on mitigating disease per se, like slowing growth of cancer cell and progression of neurodegenerative diseases. Next slide, please. No, previous, we went too far. Previous slide. Yeah. If successful, this treatment, this research would open door to new indication for cannabis treatment, such as autoimmune disease like multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, and inflammatory bowel disease, neurodegenerative disorders such as amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Alzheimer, and Parkinson, and some form of cancer, particularly gliomas. Again, I want to emphasize this point. It's not alleviating the system, it's mitigating diseases per se. This is the future of using cannabis for medical purpose. Next slide, please. All right, this is a while. Another important area is the use of cannabis for mental health. It is well documented that cannabis possesses antidepressive, anti-anxiolytic, antipsychotic, and anti-inflammatory properties. So it is very likely that cannabis would be tried for mental health indication. There are a couple of big data studies that suggest that in states that approve medical cannabis, the number of prescriptions for antidepressant, anti-anxiety drug, and analgesic, including opioid, significantly decreased. Next slide, please. Right. Another area that I believe will proliferate in the next few years is personalized medicine, more specifically tailoring cannabis treatment to the needs of a particular patient. Using information about genes that affect cannabinoid distribution and metabolism, clinicians can recommend individualized regimen that enhance the effectiveness and reduce side effects. The goal is to rely on pharmacogenomic testing rather than subjecting patient to trial and error treatment as currently is done. This may lead to better relationship with patient, better compliance, increased trust in the healthcare system, and cost reduction as therapy became streamlined and targeted. This group, I'm talking about this publication, evaluated genomic data to identify polymorphism of 3 genes that play key roles in cannabis pharmacokinetic. It turns out that 25% that had genotype, which is first one, top one, that puts them at risk for having cannabis-induced psychosis. 10% middle bar had genotype indicating at high risk for cannabis-induced neurocognitive impairment, and lowest one, clinician can provide counseling on the best strain and dose of cannabis to avoid this adverse effect. Next slide. This is my final slide. Despite overwhelming evidence of salutary effect of cannabis, approximately 40% of physicians would not recommend cannabis. Why? A lot to do with stigma as Mary mentioned, it is not easy to erase years of negative publicity. Also, there are some legitimate safety concern. Doctors have no problem prescribing drugs, and you can see this table taken from FDA registry. Doctors have no problem prescribing drugs that kill approximately 200,000 patients and lead to hospitalization at approximately 1 million patients per year, according to FDA Adverse Event Reporting System report. I want to emphasize that all these drugs have been approved by FDA. And as far as we know, so far, no deaths been documented related to use of cannabis. And finally, the insurance carrier do not reimburse for cannabis treatment. As of now, this therapy is not cheap. Also, their attempt to design a reimbursement mechanism by self-insured entities in New Jersey, the subject right now is too complex to discuss in this short presentation. So that's all what I have to say. And thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Mr. Becker, Dr. Becker, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm done. So at this point, if you have any question, I'll be happy to answer. But otherwise, thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you. Our next speaker up is Ken Wolski. Ken, if you are present, please raise your hand. Ken Wolski. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ken Wolski. I'm a registered nurse and I'm executive director of the Coalition for Medical Marijuana in New Jersey. I appreciate the invitation to address the CRC regarding medical conditions that should be added to the Medicinal Cannabis Program. I urge the CRC to allow anyone with prescriptive privileges in New Jersey to recommend cannabis therapy for any condition that the prescriber feels may be helped by medical cannabis. Leave this issue up to the physician, the advanced practice nurse, or the physician's assistant to act in the best interest of the patient. The state of New Jersey has already approved a number of conditions to qualify for medical cannabis. Therefore, cannabis should be allowed to be recommended off-label for any other condition, as is the case with prescription pharmaceuticals. Adding individual conditions to the medicinal cannabis program is time-consuming and inefficient. The Compassionate Use Medical Marijuana Act passed into law in 2010, and it wasn't until September 2016 that the first additional condition was added, and this was done by the legislature after the Department of Health refused to act on it, on our request to add PTSD. And it wasn't until October of 2017, nearly 8 full years after it passed into law, that 43 additional petitions were approved for cannabis therapy. So also consider the case of rare and orphan diseases. A rare disease is one that affects fewer than 200,000 Americans. And an orphan disease is one whose treatment is not considered profitable enough by the pharmaceutical industry to develop. There are over 7,000 rare and orphan diseases that affect somewhere between 500,000 and 900,000 residents here in the state of New Jersey. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or Lou Gehrig's disease, and Tourette's syndrome are two of these diseases, and they both qualify for marijuana therapy in New Jersey, but the latter took nearly 8 years to qualify. Around 2009, a woman called me and told me her son suffered from Friedreich's ataxia, a neurological condition, and it affected his ability to walk, and she was giving him medical marijuana that she risked arrest and imprisonment for giving him. And Friedreich's ataxia is still not a qualifying condition for marijuana therapy in New Jersey. The discovery of the endocannabinoid system about 25 years ago really provides the scientific basis for how cannabis can help with so many different diseases and symptoms and medical conditions. And endocannabinoid system researchers say that this is a role for all disease processes. However, it really doesn't matter what condition qualifies for cannabis therapy if the patient can't get it because of their living situation. A woman called me 3 days ago telling me her 90-year-old father is living in an assisted living facility in central New Jersey, suffering from chronic pain on opiates and injections. And her father's doctor recommended that he use medical marijuana. So this daughter got a caregiver card. She went to the alternative treatment center. She spent $400 to purchase medical cannabis oil for her father. And the assisted living facility refused to allow her to even bring the cannabis into the facility to give it to her father. They said that they received federal funds and that would place their funds in jeopardy. If they were not aware that Congress has forbidden the Department of Justice to spend any money interfering with medical marijuana programs in any of the over 3 dozen such programs in the United States. So the CRC really needs to reassure all facilities that house medical marijuana patients that receive federal funds that they are not at risk for this. Regarding patient education and counseling needs, the best way to ensure the appropriate education and counseling of medical cannabis patients is to ensure that the educators and counselors are themselves appropriately educated. As I testified at the previous CRC meeting, the CRC should quickly adopt dosing and administration guidelines and educational programs on the endocannabinoid system as recommended, as required by the J. Koenig Act of 2019 and as required by the New Jersey Department of Health Executive Order number 6 from 2018 that said the Medical Marijuana Review Panel was to oversee the curriculum development of this program. They said this in 2018, and we still don't have this. And so I'm glad to see that there are a few members of the Medicinal Marijuana Review Panel here. Perhaps they can explain what's the holdup in developing these programs. These programs already exist in other states. Educational programs and dosing and administration guidelines are well known in other states. My recommendation is that requiring education on the endocannabinoid system, this newly discovered system in the human body, should be a condition for all healthcare professionals with prescriptive privileges as a condition for continued licensure in the state. Just 2 to 4 hours to learn about this newly discovered system whose purpose is to restore homeostasis to the body. I think you may need to threaten these prescribers with losing their licenses if they don't learn about this very important new discovery. And finally, medicinal product expiration dates. We recommend that expiration dates be part of the labeling on cannabis products, but really proper processing and proper storage of cannabis products appears to be the most important thing in prolonging shelf life. Improperly processed or stored marijuana can develop mold, which can be a health hazard. But marijuana in the form of dried flower really does not expire. Unlike food or prescription medication, there's no date at which this form of marijuana will be hazardous to consume. However, the potency and effects can change over time. So there are tips for proper cannabis storage, which is to store it in an airtight container, keep it in a cool location, keep it from exposure to light, and use edibles by the use-by date, because obviously edibles can go bad the same way that food goes bad, because edibles are simply food products that are infused with cannabis. Food can go bad. That would be the expiration date. As for products such as vape pens, cartridges, or tinctures, it's recommended that you use them within a year of purchase. The FDA is silent on the issue of expiration date for medical cannabis. I'd like to address the CRC and thank you for the mission that you've taken on to create this new industry with social justice at its core and dedicated to repairing the damage that has been done to individuals and communities in the war on drugs, and acknowledge the progress that you've made in fulfilling this mission. Well done, CRC. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Blake, coming up the next set of speakers, please.
As per usual, everyone will have 3 minutes to speak. That is the end of our invited speakers. Everyone will have 3 minutes to speak. I will call 5 names at a time. If you hear your name, please raise your hand so that we may give you the opportunity to speak. Again, 3 minutes. Be concise as you can and respectful of everyone's time. Lincoln Grattan, Maritza Alston, Shirley Patel, Edwin Ortiz, and Adri Menendez. Lincoln Grattan, Maritza Alston, Shirley Patel, Edwin Ortiz, and Adri Mendones. If any of those individuals are present, please raise your hand. Shirley Patel, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, thank you, commissioners, for giving us the opportunity to speak. Shirley Patel on behalf of Blaze Responsibly. Thank you for continuing to talk about the medical program. And I do appreciate the delay, even though everybody does want to see adult use sales. We want to get the medical program done correctly the first way. And I just wanted to share an experience that I recently had at a visit at an ATC that I won't name. It was quite dramatically different than my former visits, in that usually when you go in as a medical patient, you can do an assessment if you choose to, or there's consultants that are, or patient consultants that are usually on site. This time around though, and then there's always verification at the end of the transaction, like double verification with your medical card. They tell you what your remaining allotment is, general information. And this time around when I went in, it really felt like a retail transaction. There was no double verification. I wasn't told about my allotment, which I'm always told about how much remaining allotment I have left as a patient. And I was also told that everybody is now a bud tender and that there are no more patient education consultants, period, that title has been removed. And the individual that I was speaking to, who was the bud tender, was telling me that, they were upset that they didn't have the ability to consult and talk to patients because they really enjoy that part of their job. And so I think as you guys are figuring out ways to, keep this program viable and making sure that the ATCs are accountable to the medical patients, that you still have patient education and counseling available on site, regardless if we're moving towards adult use sales. And especially for patients to be able to know how much allotment they have left, because it's not something that you get on your receipt. It's something that you can look up on the state website, but not everybody is like tech savvy, especially older patients. And so even if it's on the receipts now, at least, so patients can see how much product that they have left. The other thing that I thought was a little frustrating is, the prices are already high. People spend thousands of dollars a month on medicine alone. A lot of the ATCs are now offering discounts and different deals, which I definitely appreciate. However, I know a lot of patients who are on government assistance, for example, or Medicare card holders. You would normally get a discount for that, but now when there's promotions that are ongoing, they don't let you stack those discounts. And so if the whole point is to try to alleviate cost burdens for patients, then I think that should be something that we take into consideration. And lastly, because time's running out, I know the CRC is not responsible for this and it's a legislative thing, but patients definitely need home grow. If you can advocate for it, if you can tell us what to do to help advocate for it and educate, I think at a minimum to help out with this whole burden, home grow would be beneficial, and just patient education. Please don't forget about us. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any of the other names I called. I will go to the next 5. Alex Stein, Ken Beltrant, Stephen Greenberg, Alexandria Elsala, Barry Dahl. Say those names again. Alex Stein, Ken Beltrant, Stephen Greenberg, Alexandria Alcala, Barry Dahl. Barry Dahl, go ahead. Please state your name for the record since you're listed with your phone number here.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yes, my name is Barry Dahl. I live in Bergenfield, New Jersey. And I want to compliment the commission for all the work they've done. I've been listening in, and I can see all the amount of work that's going on and taking place. and it sounds very thorough. I was very pleased to see the discussion on the ATC, where it just wasn't rushed through. I think there was some very poignant comments made about let's do this right, and I totally agree with that. We have in our town, we have a proposal to build a factory. I'll call it a factory, a manufacturing facility in our town. And I was wondering, when the list came up of those that were approved today, I think it was 68 companies. I couldn't get the video on it. I'm on the website, but the slide did not come up. And I was wondering if there was a company called 1111 on that list. And secondly, I would like to know if we have any comments about the proposal. How can we contact the commission? And my last question, if I may, is there a separate license required for medical versus recreational marijuana? Thank you.
Before we move on, thank you, Mr. Dahl. Before we move on to the next speaker, I'll just note that as it pertains to the applicants who were approved for conditional licenses today, that information will be posted on the CRC's website as soon as we can get it up after this meeting. Thank you. Ms. Blake, we can move on to the next set.
I see Mr. Dahl is finished, so I will move on to the next 5. Earl E. Brown, Esquire, Nafisa Ali Goldsmith, Andrew Zetlin, Gilbert Mobley, Eduardo Duran. Earl E. Brown, Esquire, Nafisa Ali Goldsmith, Andrew Zetlin, Gilbert Mobley, Eduardo Duran. If any of those individuals are present, please raise your hand. Please be aware that your name needs to match, name or number needs to match the one with which you registered. That is the way that we'll be able to identify you. Not seeing any of those individuals present, I will move on to the next 5. Daryl Miles, Jan Shepelsky, Wanda Bull, Khalif Tyler, Robert Miller. Daryl Miles, Jan Shepelsky, Wanda Bull, Khalif Tyler, Robert Miller. Jan Shepelsky, go ahead.
Hello, CRC. My name is Dr. Jan Shpelsky, and I'm a member of the New Jersey Cannabis Business Association Laboratory Testing Committee. The LTC is dedicated to defining a consensus set of laboratory testing standards for New Jersey that ensures safe products to protect consumers and patients. We look forward to working with the CRC to create best-in-class standards and a model system for which other states can look up to. We appreciate all the hard work you're doing and applaud the CRC for reviewing and approving adult use licenses and continuing to expand the medical program. As the CRC works to ensure the medical supply and looks forward to adult use, we support the CRC's effort to implement independent third-party testing to verify that adult and medical products are free of contamination. Testing cannabis for safety earlier will reduce the risk of failures and recalls down the road, along with associated disruptions to supply. It's commendable that the CRC is concerned with securing supply and ensuring that this supply is able to pass testing standards. We encourage additional requirements for newly licensed medical cultivators, as well as newly licensed recreational businesses, and we urge the CRC to expedite testing lab licensing. The NJCBA LTC has also been discussing proposals for permanent testing standards and will be providing comments to the CRC on this topic in future meetings and in writing. Regarding the increase of maximum batch sizes to 100 pounds, of the states with publicly available batch limits, only 2 out of 20 have limits of 100 pounds or greater. Out of those 20 states, the average batch size is 21 pounds and the most common batch size is 10 pounds. The change to 100-pound limits has a big impact on third-party testing labs, equating to a 90% reduction in potential revenue. Labs will have to acquire more mixing equipment to ensure that a homogenized sample can be achieved. Labs will also have to store significantly more sample mass, consuming critical space that may not be fully available. The results in added costs, effort, and increased security risk for third-party labs. Testing labs are essential for getting New Jersey's cannabis industry functioning effectively and safely. Aside from potentially endangering public safety, larger batch sizes hurt the social equity goal of the CRC. Micro licenses and small operators often have smaller batch sizes due to facility limitations, whereas the cost for compliance testing will stay the same if a batch is 5 pounds or 100 pounds. Micro businesses will pay more for testing than larger operators and may be subject to more recalls and failures, undermining the social equity goals of the CRC. We all want New Jersey, a state known for its leadership in the pharmaceutical space, to be a model testing program. We urge the CRC to revert to batch sizes at the mean or median for whatever is seen in other states instead of being an outlier. Please reconsider this decision that risks public safety and contributes to social inequity. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Robert Miller. Mr. Miller, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So much like Dr. Shapelsky, as part of the New Jersey Cannabis Association Lab Testing Committee, so am I. And a little bit of background myself, come from New Jersey, got my undergrad and graduate degree from Rutgers College of Pharmacy. In looking at what we were just talking about, the batch size, I want to give some real life examples of situations we have and the concerns we have from a laboratory side. We know, as we heard from Commissioner Barker, about the importance about safety and efficacy. And the decision to reduce or to look at a batch size of 100 pounds really increases the chances of safety risk to the patients, which is really our paramount interest. Particular is really related to microbiological contamination. If you look across the United States, there's been a number of recalls related to microbiological failures. And the concern that we have from a lab testing group is having such a small size product would really increase the chances that a localized, what we call hotspot of microbiological contamination would be missed, therefore impacting overall patient safety. So what we urge is the commission to reconsider the position. And the recommendation is, as Dr. Shapelsky said, to even take it a step further, that you could actually subdivide the batch into 5 equal parts, say if we go up to 100 pounds, and subdivide it into 5 equal parts of 20 pounds each and test each one of them. That would really do 2 things. Significantly increase the chances of localized hotspots, and also give the grower processors the opportunity to remediate their product and understand where those failures may be coming. Because we know at the end of the day, you can't test quality into the product, but by having a better understanding of how the product behaves, we could ultimately help and work with those grower processors to remediate and potentially mitigate such increased chances of microbiological contamination in the future. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up will be Khalif Tyler. Khalif, go ahead.
Yes, how you doing? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, how you doing? I just want to start off first and say I appreciate everything that you guys are doing, and looking forward to see how this program actually integrates into the business market. Actually, I'm kind of in the process of, I'm trying to figure out how to go about getting the regulation compliance plan. And I have a question as far as the timetable of the approval for the recreational licensing. And as far as like when that process, I know you guys said that you started taking the applications on the 15th, but is it like similar to the original cultivation license where it's going to take about 90 days to process? And 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 also the information for the regulatory compliance plan. I apologize, I'm a little bit scattered right now. Yeah, I don't really have too much more comment, more questions and than anything right now.
Thank you. The next 5 names: John Fleming, James Rice, Yolanda Green, Danielle McKillop, Jade Sancho Doser. Again, John Fleming, James Rice, Yolanda Green, Daniel McKillop, Jade Sancho Doser. If any of those individuals are present, please raise your hand. Not seeing any of those individuals, I will move on. Christopher Almada, Mike Courtney, Osbert Orduna, Hugh Giordano. Christopher Almada, Mike Courtney, Osbert Orduna, Hugh Giordano. Hugh Giordano, go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine.
Excellent, thank you so much. I am Hugh Giordano, Union Representative for UFCW Local 360. First, we'll make it clear that the UFCW absolutely supports the expansion and protection of the medical program. A strong medical program will lead to a strong adult use program, and those safety and health standards will then protect the workers too. So we are really proud of the CRC and glad that Chairwoman, Vice Chair, and the other honorable chairpersons care about workers and patients. So thank you. I'm here today, and most folks that know me know that I'm a pretty positive person when it comes to having labor and industry work together. Unfortunately, we have a dilemma here, and I'm really glad that Commissioner Barker brought up stuff as the labor standards, and Commissioner Nash also brought up following the law, because as Commissioner Barker said, a real intangible piece of evidence would be a union labor peace agreement and a collective bargaining agreement. Unfortunately, for the 99% of consultants, lawyers, and executives who the UFCW has worked with over the years, there is a small percentage who believe that breaking the labor peace standards is okay. And this is a direct attack against not only workers, but patients, because patients are workers and workers are patients. I'm talking in reference today of Columbia Care, also known as the cannabis. We have a supermajority of workers who have signed union cards. We have who have signed an open petition to management saying that they want to be represented by the UFCW, and the cannabis is refusing under the labor peace standards and the spirit of the law to recognize the workers who work every single day to take care of patients and their well-being. If you look at Columbia Care and the cannabis on social media, Google News, and you type in Columbia Care social equity, you will see numerous articles where they talk about racial equity, community, resources, social equity. They use these key words in hopes that the political figures will hear this and support them. But when it comes down to reality, all those words must not be going towards the workers then, because all those standards, these group of professionals that work at the cannabis in Deptford are without a doubt fulfill all these racial equity, community, and social equity standards if they would allow their workers to organize. They are actively having anti-union meetings. They are telling workers that they cannot wear union paraphernalia. These are direct violations of federal law on top of that. As most of the legal professionals know, who have worked with the UFCW and myself, they know that I am the person who turns the cheek because I want to have a good relationship with industry. But this is unacceptable. At the end of the day, my job is to do one thing and one thing only: protecting the working class, protect the working class within cannabis. And that's both the workers and the patients. And this is a direct violation and a spit in the face to the CRC, who works hard every day on social equity, who puts the time and effort in, who travels the state to speak about these agendas. And for the pre-existing employers to believe that they are above par and not supposed to follow the law, that's sad. It really is, because everything they stand for then is a lie. And they've lied to the state, and they've lied to the governor and the Senate and the Assembly. Also, in saying that, we have reached out to the company numerous times, and we are showing good faith still. And we want to bring it to the attention of all the consumers and patients about these actions and how they're affecting the workers. We still want to have open dialogue. We are also dealing with other facilities such as Breakwater and TerraSend, whose management have openly said anti-union propaganda. I'll give you an example. Breakwater, I hate to say this, used foul language and told workers to throw the SHIT in the trash, yelling it and screaming it in a non-work area and on their break. TerraSend has openly also told union reps to not speak to the workers in non-work areas. To all the good facilities out there, thank you. Verano, Zenleaf just ratified their contract. They have a CBA, so Zenleaf workers are unionized.
Thank you,
and being
Mr.
protected.
Giordano. Really
All right.
appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Have a good day, everybody.
Next up is Mike Courtney. Mike Courtney, go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'd like to start out with thanking the commission for everything they've done and appreciate all of their effort. Reason I signed up to make a public comment today is our application was one of the rejected applications. And one of the reasons is it stated that we did not have notarized documents for all persons of interest. However, we did provide all notarized documents. We had 11 people, and based on the data that was provided today, it looks like most applicants had 2 or 3 people. The portal only allowed you to upload 10 people. So we did upload 1 person in under the other documents section. And it was mentioned today is, hey, if you want, make sure you upload it in 3 places, it's better than none. All right, the documents were definitely uploaded. So to have our application rejected for something that we actually did, and we're limited by the inability to get any support of how we upload more than 10 people. We reached out to tech support, nothing. We submitted 2 weeks late. We followed the instructions to the T because we couldn't modify things. We didn't want to combine documents because, again, it said modifications could possibly get us banned. We did everything right, and we still got kicked out of the rejected, which I understand we can reapply, but there's no meeting next month. So even if by some good chance that we are able to get into the good graces and get in, April would be the earliest. We'd be 60 days behind the competition when we did everything that we were supposed to do. We've also reached out multiple times by phone and by email to the CRC seeking guidance on this, and nobody responds. Not since December 15th, not when we got this letter a week before today's meeting, which we immediately responded to. And we just want to know, how is this fair that we actually followed the guidelines, did everything right compared to some other people and we know didn't do things right, and our application got rejected, and now we have nothing we can do about it other than get in line. And so we have a team, and also everything I've heard today where our whole team was built. The reason we built such a large team is to try to do as much good for the state and make the state and the CRC proud. And we're just very frustrated to see this result. And we would love some guidance on what to do now. Because even if we resubmit, the portal won't even allow us to submit more than 10 people. So who can we talk to? How can we get some guidance? And what do we go from here? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Madam Chair, can I say a word?
Yes, Director Brown, please go ahead.
Mr. Courtney, I was just going to suggest that you submit to the email crc.licensing@crc.nj.gov. Just put something in the attention line noting that you spoke at this meeting. We'll make sure it gets routed to the right place and someone gets in contact with you.
Up next, Hassan Austin, Carlos J. Pohl, Nicholas Butts, James Carty, Dr. Seth, Hassan Austin, Carlos J. Paul, Nicholas Butts, James Carty, Dr. Seth. Please ensure that the name that is on your screen at the moment is the one that you registered with. Hassan Austin, go ahead.
Yes, hey, good afternoon. Hello, I'm Hassan Austin, Managing Partner of MTN Biz Development, a business development agency. We aid the public and private sector in achieving business goals in cannabis, paying it forward with quantifiable social equity policy procedures and programming is key on the local level. But I want to start off up top. Just want to commend the CRC for its efforts with the weekly regional public hearings the last 3 weeks, taking public feedback to determine the best way to spend social equity revenues is much needed in this process. Thank you for your efforts. The public provided wonderful suggestions. Some great comprehensive solutions were made to spend social equity revenues. But remember, social equity spend will be prioritized and organized on a local level. So we believe spend should be deployed in an incubator infrastructure to better promote public and private partnerships. This best allows for that quantifiable distribution of social equity benefits within your community. Investing in infrastructure should be the starting point, and this should start with medical cannabis education workshops for the patient population and the community as a whole. This should include medical cannabis training for law enforcement and fire department, as because they will be interfacing with medical patients and the community as a whole. We've learned that social equity can be a very elusive definition. Social equity can be defined on a local level by your elected officials in the communities they serve. So please encourage investment in programming and infrastructure on a local level. Just lastly, I just want to make a really quick point about real estate. The cannabis real estate inventory is very scarce in New Jersey, slowing down market conditions, presumably slowing down the process to procure a license. Plus, you have to kind of be plugged in to access some of this off-market property stuff. So the scarcity is real. The landlords have challenges, the municipalities have challenges. So please be patient as those solutions come about to increase some of the real estate inventory. That said, I would implore municipalities to consider expanding ordinances to allow for more square footage to hit the marketplace. Understandably, this is a very sensitive area, schools, house of worships, etc. However, just please consider some middle ground there. And for entrepreneurs, I would also encourage you guys to be creative. Think about co-working space, things that may not be a conflict to your business, and just consider all that. I just want to end by saying thanks again, CRC, for your great work, and keep up all of your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Nicholas Butts. Go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. I would like to start off by saying thank you to the CRC for giving me the opportunity to speak today, as well as providing me with such labor peace laws, which has also allowed me to reach out to the UFCW. My name is Nicholas Butts, patient employee at the Cannabis Steffer owned by Columbia Care. I am here to attest that myself and majority of my colleagues have also felt the need to reach out to the UFCW to form alliance and help represent us while turning this from a job into a career. As majority, we have voted yes, as well as petitioned for immediate recognition and have seen no form of cooperation. My colleagues and I have decided to form a union with hopes of better work environment, more fair wages and benefits, as well as job security. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you. Next up is James Carty. Go ahead. James Carty, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is James Carty. I'm currently considered a sales associate at Columbia Care Cannabis in Deptford, New Jersey. I'm also a patient. First and foremost, I would like to thank the CRC for allowing me to speak on this platform and also for creating and backing the labor peace laws that have allowed me to reach out to the UFCW 360. I'm here today to state that my coworkers and I have expressed our rights under the New Jersey Labor Peace Agreement to form a union, and we're not being recognized by Columbia Care. I chose to reach out to the UFCW not just for job protection, but to turn this from just a job to a career. Us at the bottom of the totem pole in this new budding industry want to be recognized as bud tenders. We want the job security a union offers. We want to be able to accept tips. We want to be the ones who start right at the forefront of this industry and be able to grow our careers, not just be stuck in one spot. But most importantly, we want to have a voice. And with a union, all that will be possible. The employees at Cannabis Deptford expressed our rights to form a union. Now we want to be recognized as one. Thank you.
Thank you. Carlos J. Paul, go ahead. Carlos Paul, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Carlos J. Paul. I'm a patient and senior sales associate for the Cannabis in Deptford, New Jersey, under the Columbia Care brand. I want to take this time to thank the CRC for establishing the labor peace laws in New Jersey that allowed me the right to reach out to the UFCW, as well as the opportunity to speak here today. Along with myself, my team at the Cannabis have voted in majority, signed union cards, as well as have signed a petition stating we wanted representation from the UFCW Local 360. The reason I had reached out to the UFCW is because I want this job to be a lifelong career with benefits and protection, not only for myself, but my fellow colleagues and any future employees in the industry. I also want to know that we are going to grow along with the industry and not just watch it grow. And after being able to speak here today, I hope that this is able to push forth the unionization of Cannabis Deptford, not only for us, but for future dispensaries and workers to coming into the state. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Derwood Pinkett and Dr. Monique Hamilton. Are any of those individuals present? Derwood Pinkett. Dr. Monique Hamilton, go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Dr. Monique Hamilton, and I'm board certified in internal medicine. And then I am the co-founder and lead physician for the Dr. Monihami Medical Center, DMMC in South Orange, New Jersey. I applaud the CRC in its efforts to consider the addition of more qualifying conditions to the New Jersey Medical Cannabis Program. There are many patients in New Jersey that are suffering because they do not have adequate control of their chronic medical conditions. With conventional therapies, and expanding the qualifying conditions can give these patients access to a more effective treatment. There are several ways the CRC can expand the qualifying conditions for the New Jersey Medical Cannabis Program. This can be achieved by adding additional diagnoses such as neuropathic pain, which is a form of chronic pain that does not classify as musculoskeletal pain or visceral pain. Medical cannabis has been shown to help significantly in the management of neuropathic pain. Movement disorders, which can be associated with Huntington's disease and Parkinson's disease, also benefit from medical cannabis treatment. Intractable headache syndrome, which includes cluster headaches, tension headaches, and medication overuse headaches, should also be considered as a qualifying condition. Currently, only migraine headaches are listed as a qualifying condition, but patients suffering from intractable headache syndrome can also benefit from medical cannabis. The CRC can also consider expanding the definition of the current qualifying conditions. For example, in the state of Connecticut, the chronic pain criterion is defined as chronic pain of at least 6 months duration associated with a specified underlying chronic condition refractory to other treatment intervention. The CRC can also be more inclusive of what conditions qualify a patient for medical cannabis. For example, in the state of New York, practitioners can certify patients for the medical use of cannabis for any condition based on the practitioner's clinical discretion. Patients are no longer limited by a list of qualifying conditions to be eligible for the use of medical cannabis. These are a few ways the CRC can expand the qualifying conditions for the New Jersey Medical Cannabis Program. The addition of more medical conditions will serve New Jersey's patient population in a tremendous way. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Madam Chairwoman, that was the last registered speaker for today. Actually, Dr. Seth has come on. Dr. Seth, go ahead. Dr. Seth?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, my name's Seth. I'm from Hazlitt, New Jersey. I just had a couple things that I wanted to say. We really need home grow really bad in New Jersey. How can I buy a product from a dispensary and find a seed in it and not be able to plant it in the ground without worrying about possibly being prosecuted and going to jail for 5 years for each plant? That's not right. 70% of New Jersey voted yes. No one has ever overdosed or died on cannabis. Alcohol and opiates for sure. I was hit by a bus when I was 19 and I started down the road with pain management. Nearly ruined my life. Cannabis has helped me come back at full speed. But I live by myself and I can barely afford it. By growing a plant or two, that would help me a lot. Also, not everybody grows. A lot of time gets put into a plant and not everybody has time for that. So I don't think you have to be worried about losing money. And I know it's not your choice, but maybe you can say something to legislative that you guys think home grow would help us. Even one plant. I mean, that's not going to kill your businesses. Cannabis has helped me turn my life around. I really credit it. Without it, I may be dead. That's all I have to say. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Seth, before you step away, can you please provide us with your last name just for minute taking purposes?
Nap.
Would you spell that, please?
AP.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Now that was the final speaker, registered speaker, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Ms. Blake. And thank you to all of our speakers who have offered their thoughts, questions, ideas, and concerns to the CRC today. Again, the CRC will be accepting written comments or feedback. To submit any comments in writing, please go to our website, www.nj.gov/cannabis/meetings. As always, the written comments that are submitted to the commission will be shared with commissioners and made public along with the meeting minutes. This concludes the business that is before us today. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn, Madam Chairwoman.
Moved by Vice Chair Delgado, seconded by Commissioner Barker. Is there any discussion on the motion to adjourn? Hearing none. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Are there any abstentions? All right, hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you all again for joining today's meeting. Please visit our website to view the approved calendar for our regular meetings this year. Our next regular scheduled public meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 24th at 1 p.m. Our meetings will continue to be conducted virtually until further notice. Congratulations to all of our conditional license award winners today. I'm very happy that we've finally been able to cross this threshold and a historic moment for the state of New Jersey. So a big congratulations to you all. For anybody who has raised questions today, a lot of questions can be answered from the information that is available on our website. So please look at that. The medicinal regulations, the adult use regulations, and the requirements for both of those buckets are detailed under the tab labeled cannabis businesses. So there's a wealth of information thanks to our wonderful Director of Communications, Tony Ann Blake, that is available for individuals to read and be educated on. So the time is now 4:11 p.m. and we are now adjourned. Have a great evening, everyone.